You know what they say about love and money? You can't buy the first, but you can definitely lease it. I learned that lesson the hard way on a Tuesday night in October, standing in the marble foyer of Boston's most exclusive event space, watching my wife of 3 years prepare to destroy me in front of 200 witnesses. My name is Lucas Dalton, and I'm what you might call self-made. Started with nothing but a computer science degree and a head for business. Built a property management software company that went from my garage to a $20 million exit in 5 years. Not bad for a kid from Southie who grew up fixing cars with his dad. The money changed everything, especially my dating life. That's how I met Veronica Shaw, now Veronica Dalton, though apparently not for much longer. She was finishing law school at Harvard when we met at a charity gala. Stunning, brilliant, ambitious as hell. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room when she looked at you. I fell hard and fast. Lucas, darling, you look absolutely perfect, Veronica said, gliding toward me in a dress that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her auburn hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, and her green eyes sparkled with an excitement I hadn't seen in months. Are you ready for tonight? This is going to be incredible. I adjusted my tie and smiled. Ready as I'll ever be. This is your night, Ver. You've worked so hard for this. And she had. Shaw and Associates was her dream, a boutique law firm specializing in high-end divorce and family law. I'd funded the entire operation. The prime downtown office space, the mahogany furniture, the state-of-the-art technology. Salaries for 6 attorneys and support staff, marketing, everything. $20 million to make my wife's dream come true. I couldn't have done any of this without you, she said, but something in her tone felt off, rehearsed. You've been so supportive. The way she said supportive made my skin crawl, though I couldn't put my finger on why. We walked into the main reception area, and I was genuinely impressed. The space looked incredible. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, crystal chandeliers, servers in crisp uniforms carrying champagne and hors d'oeuvres. The guest list was a who's who of Boston's legal and social elite. Judges, senior partners from white shoe firms, politicians, old money families. That's when I started noticing the looks. At first, I thought it was normal curiosity. Rich guy, beautiful wife, successful business launch. People stare. But these weren't admiring glances. These were smirks, whispers behind hands, eyes that followed me with barely concealed amusement. Oh, look, there he is, I heard someone say behind me. The Testrun husband, another voice replied, followed by muffled laughter. I froze. Test-run husband? What the hell did that mean? I can't believe she's actually going through with it tonight, the first voice continued. Right here at the opening party. It's brilliant, really. What better way to show how ruthless her firm can be? My blood turned to ice water. I turned slowly, trying to locate the speakers, but they'd melted back into the crowd. More faces turned toward me, more whispers, more barely contained laughter. Lucas! A voice boomed across the room. Elliot Cross, one of Veronica's new partners, approached with a champagne flute in each hand and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mid-30s, perfectly styled blonde hair, the kind of guy who probably called his father Sir and had never worked a day of manual labor in his life. Elliot, I said carefully. I'd never liked the guy, but Veronica insisted he was essential to the firm's success. Harvard Law Review, connected family, brought in high-profile clients. Hell of a party. Indeed it is, he said, handing me a glass. A night none of us will ever forget, especially you. There it was again, that tone, like he was in on some joke I wasn't getting. What's that supposed to mean, I asked. Elliot's smile widened. Oh, you'll see. Veronica has quite the surprise planned. Very professional. Before I could respond, he disappeared back into the crowd, leaving me standing there with growing dread in my gut. I spent the next hour circulating, trying to enjoy myself, but the whispers followed me everywhere. Test run husband. Can't believe he doesn't know. This is going to be epic. Every conversation I tried to join died the moment I approached. Every group I walked past fell silent until I was out of earshot. I felt like I was drowning in plain sight. Finally, Veronica appeared at the front of the room, tapping a champagne flute with a silver spoon. The crowd quieted instantly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here tonight to celebrate the launch of Shaw and Associates, she began, her voice carrying easily across the room. This firm represents everything I've worked toward my entire career: excellence, integrity, and the courage to make difficult decisions. Applause rippled through the crowd. I found myself clapping along, proud, despite my growing unease. As lawyers, we're often asked to handle the most challenging moments in people's lives: divorces, custody battles, family disputes. These situations require not just legal expertise, but emotional intelligence and the ability to act decisively when the stakes are highest. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found mine. For a moment, her expression softened, and I thought I saw a flicker of the woman I'd fallen in love with. Then her face hardened into something I'd never seen before. Which brings me to tonight's special announcement, she continued, reaching into her purse and pulling out a manila envelope. I believe in leading by example. The first case Shaw and Associates will handle is particularly close to my heart. The crowd leaned forward expectantly. I felt like I was watching a car accident in slow motion. Lucas, darling, could you come up here, please? Every head in the room turned toward me. The whispers stopped. The silence was deafening. My legs felt like concrete, but somehow I made my way through the crowd to where Veronica stood. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, her voice clear and strong, I'd like you to meet my husband, Lucas Dalton. He's been, how should I put this, a wonderful test run. The words hit me like a physical blow. Test run. She'd been calling our marriage a test run. Lucas has been incredibly generous with his financial support. Over the years, she continued, her voice dripping with false sweetness, he funded my law school, this office, tonight's party, everything really. He's been the perfect practice husband while I figured out what I actually wanted in life. The crowd was riveted. Some looked shocked, others delighted by the drama unfolding before them. I stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. And what I've realized, Veronica said, extending the manila envelope toward me, is that I'm ready for the real thing now. So the first job of Shaw and Associates will be my own divorce. Lucas, these are the papers. Please sign them and leave. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. 200 people stared at me, waiting to see how the test-run husband would react to being discarded in public like a piece of furniture. I took the envelope with steady hands, surprised by how calm I felt. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe something had just broken inside me, and I couldn't feel anything anymore. Well, I said quietly, my voice somehow carrying in the dead silence, I guess the test run is over. I turned and walked toward the exit, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Veronica's voice. As you can see, Shaw and Associates doesn't shy away from difficult decisions. We handle even the most personal cases with professionalism and efficiency. The crowd erupted in applause and excited chatter as I pushed through the doors and stepped into the cool October night. I stood on the sidewalk outside the event space, the manila envelope heavy in my hands, and started laughing. Not the bitter, broken laugh of a man who'd just been publicly humiliated. The cold, calculating laugh of someone who'd just realized his opponent had made a fatal error. See, here's what my dear wife had forgotten in her moment of theatrical triumph. Every single thing she'd just bragged about, the office, the furniture, the staff, the party we were standing in, was funded by my money. Not marital assets, not joint accounts. My personal funds transferred to accounts I controlled, paying for services contracted under my name. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. Tom, it's Lucas. Yeah, I know it's late. I need you to file an emergency motion first thing tomorrow morning. No, I'm not kidding. She just served me divorce papers at her office opening party. Yes, in front of 200 witnesses. Tom, listen to me very carefully. I want every payment stopped, every contract canceled, every account frozen. Tonight. My lawyer, Tom Bradley, had been handling my business affairs for 5 years. He was used to my unconventional requests. but this one gave him pause. Lucas, are you sure about this? Once we pull the plug, there's no going back. She called me her test-run husband, Tom, in front of judges, senior partners, half of Boston's legal community. She said I was practice for the real thing. I'm done being anyone's practice round. Jesus. Okay, give me 20 minutes. I'll need to make some calls. Next, I called Rico Morales, who owned the garage where I'd worked summers during college. Rico was the kind of guy who'd help you move a body and never ask questions, though hopefully it wouldn't come to that. Lucas, what's up, man? How's married life treating you? It's over, Rico, and I need a favor. Remember that towing contract you have with the city? Yeah, what about it? How fast can you get to the Meridian Event Center downtown? I gave him the details, then called my sister Maggie. She worked as a private investigator, specializing in corporate fraud and infidelity cases. If anyone could help me document what was about to happen, it was her. Maggie, I need you to get to the Meridian Event Center with your camera. Veronica just filed for divorce. No, I'll explain later. Just trust me. You're going to want to document this. Finally, I called the catering company, the florist, the venue coordinator, and the valet service. Same message to each. This is Lucas Dalton. I'm the one who contracted and guaranteed payment for tonight's event. I'm canceling my authorization effective immediately. If you want to continue service, you'll need payment from someone else. Tonight. 23 minutes later, my phone started ringing. The first call was from the venue coordinator. Mr. Dalton, I'm sorry to bother you, but there seems to be some confusion about payment for tonight's event. No confusion, I said calmly. I'm no longer responsible for any charges related to Shaw and Associates or Veronica Dalton. If she wants to continue the party, she'll need to provide alternative payment. But, sir, we have a contract. Check the signature line. The contract is with me personally, not with Shaw and Associates. I'm exercising the cancellation clause. The second call was from the caterer. Same conversation, same result. By the fourth call, I was sitting in my car across the street from the event center, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows as chaos began to unfold inside. First, the server stopped circulating with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Then I saw the venue coordinator approach Veronica, gesturing urgently. Even from a distance, I could see her confident smile falter. My phone buzzed with a text from Maggie. In position. Holy shit, Lucas, what did you do? Watch and learn, I texted back. The valet attendants were the next to disappear. Guests who'd been planning to stay late suddenly found themselves stranded without their cars. The florist arrived to remove the elaborate arrangements, claiming non-payment. But the real fireworks started when Rico showed up. I watched through the window as a massive tow truck pulled up outside the event center. Rico, all 5'6" and 200 pounds of him, walked into the party like he owned the place. He was heading straight for Veronica. My phone rang. It was Veronica. Lucas, what the hell is going on? The caterers are demanding payment. The venue is threatening to shut us down, and there's some maniac here claiming he's repossessing my car. That's not some maniac, that's Rico. And it's not your car, Ver. It's registered to Dalton Holdings, which is my company. The lease payments come from my accounts, which I just closed. You can't do this. There are judges here, senior partners, potential clients. You're humiliating me. I almost laughed at the irony. I'm humiliating you. Did you forget what happened 20 minutes ago? Something about a test-run husband? Lucas, please, we can work this out. I was just, the pressure of the night, I wasn't thinking clearly. Oh, you were thinking very clearly. You had this whole thing planned out, didn't you? The big dramatic moment, the public humiliation, showing everyone how ruthless your new firm could be. Well, congratulations, Ver. You succeeded. Your firm is definitely making an impression tonight. Through the window, I could see Rico explaining something to a growing crowd of onlookers while pointing at Veronica's BMW. She was gesticulating wildly, but Rico just shrugged and signaled to his driver. The thing is, I continued, you made one tiny miscalculation. You assumed I'd just take it, sign the papers, slink away, keep paying your bills out of gratitude or guilt or whatever. But Here's what you forgot. I'm not just your test run husband. I'm also your primary creditor. What do you mean? I mean every dollar that went into Shaw and Associates came from my personal accounts. The office lease, my signature, my guarantee, staff salaries, my payroll company, equipment, furniture, technology, all purchased with my credit cards and bank transfers. Even tonight's party, I'm the one who signed the contracts. The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. So, when you served me with divorce papers, I continued, you weren't just ending our marriage. You were also terminating your business relationship with your sole investor and creditor. And since I'm no longer your husband, I'm certainly not going to keep funding your law firm. You bastard, she whispered. No, Ver. I'm just not your test run anymore. I hung up and watched as Rico's crew loaded her BMW onto the truck. The party was in full collapse now. Guests streaming toward the exits, servers packing up equipment, Veronica standing in the middle of it all like the captain of a sinking ship. My phone lit up with notifications, missed calls, text messages, voicemails. I counted them. 456 missed calls and climbing. But I wasn't done yet. This was just the opening act. I drove home to our My House in Beacon Hill, a 19th century brownstone I'd bought and renovated before we got married. Veronica had insisted on keeping her name on the deed after the wedding for professional reasons, but the mortgage and all the bills came from my accounts. The irony wasn't lost on me that she'd probably be showing up here soon, begging me to undo what I'd just done. The thought should have given me satisfaction, but mostly I felt empty. 3 years of marriage, and it had all been a lie. I was just the guy with the checkbook, funding her real life until something better came along. I poured myself 3 fingers of Macallan and sat in my study, looking out at the harbor. My phone continued buzzing with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. Let them panic. Let them scramble. Let them figure out what it felt like to have the rug pulled out from under them. The doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. I knew it would be Veronica, but I wasn't prepared for the state she was in when I opened the door. Her perfect hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her designer dress wrinkled. She looked like she'd been crying, which was surprising. I'd never seen Veronica cry, not once in 3 years. Lucas, please, we need to talk. I think you said everything you needed to say at the party. Something about me being a test run? I didn't mean it like that. I was nervous, trying to sound confident in front of all those people. It came out wrong. I leaned against the doorframe, not inviting her in. Really? Because it sounded pretty rehearsed to me. Like you'd been practicing that little speech. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in the October cold. Can I at least come in? It's freezing out here. This is my house, Ver. As of tonight, you don't live here anymore. You made that pretty clear when you served me divorce papers. Lucas, please. The party was a disaster. Half the guests left without meeting any of our attorneys. The venue is demanding $20,000 before they'll release our equipment. The caterer is threatening to sue. And Rico, your friend took my car. How am I supposed to get to work tomorrow? I guess you'll have to call an Uber, on your own dime this time. Her composure cracked completely then. You're destroying everything I've worked for. 3 years of planning, law school, building relationships, networking. You're ruining it all because your feelings got hurt. My feelings got hurt? I couldn't help laughing. Veronica, you stood up in front of 200 people and announced that our entire marriage was practice for something real. You called me a test-run husband. You made it clear that everything I am, everything I've done for you, was just a stepping stone to your actual life. That's not, and you know what the worst part is? I would have given you the divorce quietly. If you'd come to me privately, told me you weren't happy, wanted to end things. I would have been hurt, but I would have been fair, generous even. But you chose to humiliate me instead. You chose to make me a laughingstock in front of half of Boston's legal community. She was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But you can't destroy my entire career because of one stupid moment. I'm not destroying your career, Ver. I'm just not funding it anymore. There's a difference. The firm will collapse. We have clients depending on us, staff who need their jobs. Then you better figure out how to pay them. Maybe Elliot's family money can cover it. Or maybe you can take out a business loan. You're a lawyer. Get creative. I started to close the door, but she grabbed the edge of it. Lucas, I'm begging you. Give me a chance to make this right. I'll do anything. Anything? Yes, anything. Just please. Don't let everything I've worked for die because of one mistake. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman I'd loved. This stranger who'd been playing a role for 3 years. There's nothing to make right, Ver. You told me exactly how you feel about our marriage, about me. The only mistake was that you thought I'd stick around to keep funding your real life after you'd made it clear I wasn't part of it. That's not true. It is true. And you know what? I'm grateful. Because now I know exactly where I stand. I'm not your husband. I'm not your partner. I'm not even your friend. I'm just the guy who was dumb enough to pay for everything while you figured out what you really wanted. I pulled the door from her grip. But I'm not that guy anymore. Good luck with Shaw and Associates. I hope it works out better than our marriage did. I closed the door and turned off the porch light, leaving her standing in the dark. The next morning brought a parade of lawyers, accountants, and very angry creditors to my office. Tom Bradley arrived at 8 a.m. with coffee and a grim expression. Well, you've certainly made an impression, he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. I've had 12 calls since 6 a.m. Veronica's hired Patricia Morrison. I whistled. Morrison was one of the most ruthless divorce attorneys in Boston, known for taking wealthy men to the cleaners. She works fast. She's already filed an emergency motion to restore funding to the law firm, claiming you're using financial coercion to force an unfavorable divorce settlement. On what grounds? She's arguing that since you funded the firm during the marriage, it's a marital asset. She wants the court to order you to continue payments until the divorce is finalized. I leaned back in my chair, considering. What are our chances? Honestly, pretty good. The contracts are all in your name. The funding came from premarital assets, and she publicly stated that the marriage was a sham. Morrison's grasping at straws. But judges don't like it when people use money as a weapon, even when they're legally entitled to do so. My assistant knocked and entered. Mr. Dalton, there's a Heather Chen here to see you. She says she works for Shaw and Associates. Interesting. Heather was one of Veronica's junior associates, fresh out of law school, smart as hell but quiet. I'd met her a few times at firm events. Send her in. Heather entered nervously, clutching a folder to her chest. She was small and precise, with shoulder-length black hair and wire-rimmed glasses. She looked like she hadn't slept. Mr. Dalton, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to someone, and I didn't know where else to go. Sit down. What's going on? She perched on the edge of the chair, still holding her folder. The firm is falling apart. Half the staff didn't show up today because their paychecks bounced. The phones are ringing nonstop with creditors demanding payment. And Veronica, she's not handling it well. I imagine not. She's been screaming at everyone, blaming the staff for not anticipating the cash flow problems, threatening to sue you for sabotage. She fired 2 people this morning just for asking about their salaries. That's unfortunate, but I'm not sure how I can help you. Heather opened her folder and pulled out a stack of documents. I think you should see these. I took the papers and started reading. They were emails, printed from Veronica's computer, dating back 6 months. My blood pressure spiked as I read. From vdalton@shawassociates.com to ecross@shawassociates.com. Subject, exit strategy. Elliot spoke with Patricia Morrison today about divorce timeline. She thinks we can get everything finalized within 90 days if we can document financial dependence and emotional abuse. Need you to start documenting Lucas's controlling behavior. Race firm decisions. I flipped to the next page. From ecross@shawassociates.com to vdalton@shawassociates.com. Subject, RE, Exit Strategy 5. already started notes. His insistence on approving major expenditures could be painted as financial abuse. The fact that he questions your business decisions shows controlling behavior. Morrison says if we can establish a pattern, you could get spousal support plus a significant portion of his assets. There were dozens more. Plans to manufacture evidence of abuse, strategies for maximizing the divorce settlement, discussions about how to frame my legitimate business oversight as controlling behavior. But the worst was an email from 3 weeks ago, from vdalton@shawassociates.com to ecross@shawassociates.com. Subject, Opening Party E. Decided to serve papers at the opening. Will be maximum humiliation for Lucas. Maximum publicity for us. Patricia thinks the public nature of it will make him more likely to settle quickly to avoid further embarrassment. Plus, showing we can handle even the most personal cases ruthlessly will be great marketing. I set the papers down carefully, my hands shaking with rage. Where did you get these? I was working late last night, trying to salvage what I could from the client files. Veronica left her computer unlocked when she stormed out. I saw the first email by accident, but then I kept reading. Heather's voice was barely above a whisper. Mr. Dalton, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what they were planning. Why are you showing me this? Because it's wrong. And because, she hesitated, because I'm probably going to lose my job anyway. The firm can't survive without your funding, and even if it could, I don't want to work for people who would do something like this. I looked at the young woman sitting across from me, risking her career to do the right thing. What do you need from me? I was hoping you might write me a reference letter. I know it's a lot to ask, given everything that's happened, but I've been applying to other firms and consider it done. Tom, can you make sure Heather gets connected with some of the firms we work with? Tom nodded. Absolutely. And Heather, thank you for bringing this to me. It takes courage to do the right thing when it's going to cost you. She stood to leave, then turned back. Mr. Dalton, I hope you destroy them. What they did to you, it's unforgivable. After she left, Tom and I sat in silence for several minutes. Well, Tom finally said, this changes things significantly. How so? With these emails, we can prove premeditation. They weren't just planning to divorce you, they were planning to frame you for abuse, to maximize the settlement. That's fraud, conspiracy, potentially criminal conspiracy. I thought about Veronica standing on my doorstep last night, crying and begging for forgiveness. It had all been an act. Even her tears were calculated. What are our options? We could file a countersuit for fraud and conspiracy, seek damages for the attempted extortion, or... Tom paused, a slow smile spreading across his face. We could get creative. I'm listening. Patricia Morrison is good, but she's also arrogant. She's probably assuming you'll roll over and settle to avoid a messy public divorce. She doesn't know we have these emails. So we let her file her motions. Let her make her arguments about financial abuse and controlling behavior. Let her paint you as the villain. And then, at exactly the right moment, we produce evidence that the entire thing was a setup. I was beginning to see where he was going with this. In open court. In open court. In front of the same legal community that witnessed your humiliation at the party. And Veronica and Elliot? Conspiracy to commit fraud is a felony. At minimum, they'd be disbarred. At maximum. Tom shrugged. Well, let's just say the Massachusetts Bar Association takes a very dim view of attorneys who manufacture evidence. For the first time since last night, I smiled. How long do we wait? Let them dig the hole deeper. A week? Maybe 2. Give Morrison time to file all her motions, make all her accusations. The more elaborate their lies become, the harder they'll fall when the truth comes out. I thought about Veronica's face when she realized I wasn't going to be her meal ticket anymore. About Elliot's smirk when he'd handed me that champagne glass. About the 200 people who'd watched my public humiliation and thought it was entertainment. Tom? Yeah? Let's make sure the hole is deep enough that they can't climb out. 2 weeks later, I sat in Suffolk County Superior Court, watching Patricia Morrison tear me apart with surgical precision. She was everything her reputation promised. Mid-50s, silver hair, steel gray eyes, and a voice that could cut glass. Your Honor, she said, pacing in front of the judge's bench, what we have here is a textbook case of financial abuse. Mr. Dalton used his wealth to control every aspect of my client's life, from her career decisions to her personal relationships. When she finally found the courage to leave him, he retaliated by destroying her law firm and leaving her destitute. Judge Sarah Martinez, a no nonsense woman in her 60s, looked skeptical but was listening carefully. Ms. Dalton was forced to endure years of psychological manipulation, Morrison continued. Mr. Dalton isolated her from friends and family, monitored her spending, and demanded approval for every business decision. When she tried to assert her independence by starting her own firm, he used his financial leverage to sabotage her success. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was seething. Every word was a calculated lie, designed to paint me as an abuser and Veronica as a victim. Furthermore, Your Honor, Mr. Dalton's actions since the separation have been nothing short of vindictive. He has systematically destroyed my client's professional reputation, left her unable to pay her staff or maintain her office, and rendered her essentially homeless. Morrison turned to face me directly. This is not the behavior of a man seeking a fair divorce settlement. This is the behavior of a man who cannot accept that his victim has finally escaped his control. She was good, really good. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed her myself. Mr. Bradley, Judge Martinez said, I'd like to hear your client's response to these allegations. Tom stood slowly, adjusting his tie. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these allegations, Mr. Dalton was a loving and supportive husband who funded his wife's education and career ambitions without reservation. He only withdrew his financial support after Ms. Dalton publicly humiliated him and made it clear that their marriage was, in her words, a test run. That's a rather convenient interpretation, Morrison interjected. If I may finish, Tom said calmly. Mr. Dalton funded Shaw and Associates with his personal assets, not marital assets. He had every legal right to withdraw that funding when the marriage ended. Ms. Morrison is asking this court to force my client to continue financing his ex-wife's business indefinitely. The business was started during the marriage, Morrison countered. It's a marital asset regardless of the funding source. Judge Martinez held up a hand. I've heard enough for today. I'm going to take this under advisement and issue a ruling by